When I started this YouTube channel, I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before my channel was discovered by the leftists, the liberals, and the radicals, etc. As can be seen in some of the comments on my videos lately, it is clear that the left has now started to target my channel and have started a campaign to get it banned. My like to dislike ratio on my videos has dropped and the comments are starting to get abusive. As I have already explained in previous videos, I am an ex-SADF soldier and proud of it. I served on the border and fought for a real cause. I believed in then, and in hindsight, I still do. One only has to look at what has happened to South Africa to know that this is exactly what we were fighting against. In some recent comments on my videos, I got called out and accused of various things, but most recently, one individual accused me of not having served in the SADF, or if I did, of being a chef. You know who you are. Let me put the record straight. I keep my identity private because I don't need these kind of comments on my other social media profiles. I don't need the death threats from members of the radical leftist parties such as the EFF and BLF, just as people like Willem Petzer has been getting just about from day one. I just don't need that kind of crap in my life. But to give you some kind of idea of what I did and where I served in the SADF, I will give you the following information. I was trained as a field sapper in Bethlehem, in the Free State, and then served on the border for a year. My duties were to sweep roads for landmines, locate arms caches, and to provide clean water for the camp I stayed in on the border. I was also used on occasion by the well-known Kufut forces, or the South African Police Forces, to accompany them when they had information of buried arms caches. We used metal detectors to do this. After arriving on the border and before being deployed to different bases, we were sent out on what was known as a mynjag or mine hunt. We were sent to sweep a spoor or a track that 101 Battalion had made by literally bundu bashing from the border up 100 kilometers into Angola. So within a week of arriving on the border, we were deployed on this mission. We were just about at our destination when one of the drivers got careless and drove slightly off the tracks of the other vehicles and detonated a landmine. No one lost their lives that day, but one guy lost an eye when his glasses were smashed and the glass was blown into his eye by the blast. Another guy had his forehead literally crushed by the mag stand that was ripped from its mountings on the biffle and hit him square in the face. There were various other injuries, but that was my introduction to the Angolan Bush War. That was the first time we carried our mates to the Capitec choppers. We spent nearly a week guarding that vehicle until the recovery arrived to tow it back to Oshakati. I was never involved in any direct skirmishes with enemy on the ground. That was the work of the infantry. We were not trained as infantrymen, although we did have some infantry training so that we could defend ourselves should something like that happen to us while we were out sweeping the roads. Which, by the way, actually I know of 2 ambushes that we literally walked straight through, and the convoys that came through afterwards were attacked. So yes, we needed the infantry training, although I never actually had to use it. Having said this, the camp I was stationed at, which was literally only 5 kilometers from the border, or Kaplane as we called it, was attacked by swapper forces no less than twice in 6 months. I have had the experience of waking up with mortars falling around us, with nothing more than the canvas tent as cover. Although we managed to prevent the camp from being stormed by returning fire, our camp suffered a lot of damage, and at least 1 soldier was killed. Many had shrapnel wounds. I have friends who are walking around today with shrapnel still inside them because it was too deep to remove. To answer the question from one of my commenters, yes, that night I carried a buddy to the Capitec chopper with a massive hole blown through his one thigh by a mortar that landed right next to his tent as he was getting out of bed and heading outside. We never saw or heard from him again. So to those that might question my honesty when I say I was there, unless you have proof to the contrary, please rather put your keyboard down. I'm not a GV or grensvechter as we called them those days. Those are the guys who served as storemen, chefs, all the non-combatant roles, and then went home and told everybody of stories about how many terrorists they killed and how many ears they collected and so on. I'm not one of them, and I don't want any of them commenting on my videos. because you know nothing and your so-called wisdom only shows your ignorance. Isn't it amazing that when you ask people to prove that they actually did serve in the old SADF, they were always either a recce or a parabat? Now, when someone tries to pass themselves off as a parabat and calls themselves a paratrooper, you know they are probably bullshitting. The word paratrooper was never ever used in the SADF, not that I ever heard. They were called parabats or sapper bats by everyone. Yes, some of us sappers were also trained as bats. Now to get to the main reason of this video, why I threw my Pro Patria medal away. It is also known as the Yati medal. The Yati is another name, or is the name that the border itself, the cup lane, was called by the locals. It's in their local language, the Yati. As I've stated earlier, I am proud of the unit I served in and the level of training I had, as well as the effectiveness of the SADF as a whole. I believed in why we were fighting and still do. But when we sacrifice our lives, when we put ourselves in harm's way every single day for a whole year, and then the politicians sell us out and hand the enemy on a silver platter the very country we were protecting, kind of makes you feel betrayed. To top it all, they don't give you that medal on a parade to thank you for your service. They post it to you a year or two later without as much as a note to say thank you. I took that medal and I threw it in the trash. After all, it was nothing more than a token to show that I had actually been on the border. A participation medal. It was not anything personal awarded to me for anything I had done outside of my duties. So I hope this clears up some misconceptions about me or my channel. I'm not trying to keep my identity a secret because I am busy with something sinister. I just don't need to be hassled by idiots. That's all.